Traveling may be a hassle for some of us, but when you're the supreme leader of the hermit nation of North Korea, you get to do it in style and grandeur. Don't believe me? Then join me as I take you through the uber-luxurious ways President Kim Jong-un travels around the world. History of travel for the Kims. Whether he is going to different states for diplomatic discussions or making trade agreements, Kim Jong-un has only publicly left North Korea 9 times. He made 4 visits to China, 2 visits to South Korea, and 1 each to Russia, Singapore, and Vietnam. Most of these trips have been carried out via his preferred mode of transportation, which is his personal high-security train. Train travel has become a tradition for all 3 North Korean leaders, right from its first ruler, Kim Il-sung, who used a train as his headquarters during the Korean War. After the war ended, it seemed that the North Korean leader grew very fond of this mode of transportation and began integrating it into his regular life. He built a lot of secure palaces that could only be accessed via private railway lines, including some underground ones that could only be accessed via train. You may be thinking that this might be something that runs in the royal bloodline, but rumors say that it was triggered by an incident that occurred in 1982. Kim Jong-il and Kim Il-sung were standing at an airstrip waiting to inspect a new jet. As the test flight began, everything seemed pretty normal until the aircraft blew up in flames. Of course, when you see the jet that you were supposed to ride go up in flames and break apart into 1,000 pieces, it's definitely scary. Kim Jong-il also had an ill-fated trip via helicopter. I guess he hadn't learned his lesson, where he had a brush with death, which made him switch almost exclusively to traveling by train, just like his father before him, who also had a deep-seated dread for traveling by air. Although it does seem rather ironic that Kim Jong-il eventually died on a train during a domestic trip in December 2011. Kim Il-sung's longest journey by train took place in 1984 when he visited almost every socialist country in Eastern Europe. His trip took him through the whole of the then Soviet Union, including stops in places like Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, and Romania, and back through the Soviet Union again. North Korea is a small nation, and traveling is a must for the supreme leaders of the nation, as they must meet with other world leaders to affirm relationships and receive protection by way of inclusions and the building of soft power. Kim Il-sung's tour of the Soviet Union was seen as a necessity, especially during the height of the Cold War, when America was at war in Vietnam. That trip was a way to, at the very least, reaffirm their ties with the Communist Party and drum up support should America win in Vietnam and then set their sights on the small country of North Korea. Kim Jong-un made a similar trip to Vietnam, where he spent nearly 60 hours on the train. This is a bit excessive, and I for one won't sit still for an hour, so I definitely can't imagine having to sit on a train for 60 hours. Traveling by train. Now, when Kim travels by train, he doesn't do it like the rest of us mortals. I mean, his people see him as a god, so… Oh yeah, Kim Jong-un doesn't travel as normal people do. His trips are the true meaning of luxury, with everything you can think of and even dream of. Kim's armored train comes outfitted with all the latest and greatest amenities, from silk sheets to cotton and wool cushions, shag carpeting, a bearskin rug, waterbeds, mahogany chairs and tables, and all the imported adornments you could think of. You know, all the regular Bond villain tropes, including a tank filled with piranhas. While a lot of the images of his private carriage are not shown for security reasons, we have had a lot of first-hand accounts from North Korean defectors who have described it in great detail. So when I say there are things like wine imported from Burgundy, cheese imported from Paris, caviar from Iran, and tuna worth $40,000 imported from Japan, I mean it. Hey, even if your people are starving, the supreme leader must be well fed. When Kim Jong-un travels, he does it in style, with the interior of his train costing well over $2 million, and that is just for his private carriage, which also weighs an impressive 200,000 kilograms. He takes 2 support trains with him. Each train carries extra support personnel, including security, cleaning, cooking, and other various support staff. The initial security train will go ahead of him and take the lead to make sure that the tracks and stations are safe and secure. It will also carry a large number of security officers who will be able to repel any threats that may arise. Kim has a ghastly fear of being assassinated, so his security detail has to be ready at a moment's notice. While Kim Jong-un's carriage follows behind the security detail, a third support train follows suit, with more bodyguards, staff, and supplies too. I can only imagine what would be inside the support train if the main train is already carrying so much. If I were to take a wild guess, I'd just say more of the same, but a lot more, maybe boatloads. Traveling by air. When Kim Jong-un was a young boy, he left North Korea to attend school abroad in Switzerland. And while you may have expected him to go by train, he wouldn't because he was still a young boy, and he went there to study under an assumed identity, also known as a secret identity. So traveling by way of the super luxurious super train would have been out of the question. This means he would have traveled by air, and while he may have flown commercially, he certainly doesn't fly that way anymore. Although flying isn't something the Kims are known for, they still do it from time to time. The ill-fated helicopter trip. Yet Kim Jong-un has only flown publicly once, and that was when he needed to get to Singapore for a summit between him and former US President Donald Trump about denuclearizing the Korean peninsula. Going via train would have been a viable option, but he hit a bit of a snag by way of Malaysia, where he had assassinated his half-brother at Kuala Lumpur Airport. So he and their government are not quite on speaking terms, and his protection team wouldn't be able to guarantee his safety in Malaysia. His half-brother was the heir apparent before falling out with their father over a fake passport and a trip to Disney World, Japan. So there was only one option, and that was to fly there. And fly there they did. And if Kim Jong-un's train trips are anything to go by, then we can expect a lot of the same luxuries as seen on his train trips. However, unlike his train trips, his flights are not as classy. Don't get me wrong, the interior of his jet still costs well over $1 million, with bearskin rugs, incredibly detailed seats with pieces of ivory, and plasma screen TVs with all of the latest and greatest in communications technologies. And I'm sure there's a PS5 in there somewhere. However, the issue with Kim's planes is that they are seriously out of date, and most of them are old Soviet-era planes that mostly have a due date that has expired. I do believe that his jets would have newly outfitted engines and machine technology, which would still make them solid jets to fly in. Now, it may not be Air Force One, but it is as close as Kim Jong-un is going to get, especially given that North Korea is subject to a slew of sanctions that prevent them from purchasing luxury goods and items. But I'm sure Kim Jong-un has gotten everything he desires and more. For Kim's trip to Singapore, the main man from Pyongyang needed at least 4 planes to get there, and given the decrepit state of their planes at home, they had to borrow 2 from China. The first of which was an Air China A330 flight that first flew from Pyongyang to Singapore with members of his protection and security detail to prepare for his arrival, carry out sweeps, and check for active threats. They were followed by an Air Koryo cargo plane carrying Kim's executive limousine, a Mercedes-Benz Maybach X6000, which is worth more than $1 million. Then Kim left Pyongyang on a specially designed Air China 747 that most Chinese leaders use to make their trips. Most likely, another Air Koryo plane will follow after Kim takes the rest of the delegations. This was the first time that a North Korean leader has ever taken a trip via plane, and it has come as a bit of a shock to the rest of the world, seeing as how he doesn't fly at all. This now establishes a precedent, as he may be able to fly to the United States and meet with President Joe Biden if the need arises. However, I do believe that Rocket Man would love to show up to the US on a nuclear-powered rocket as a show of strength. Although borrowing rockets from China doesn't seem plausible, they could just borrow jets again. You'd expect that they should channel efforts into building a strong air travel system with high-quality planes. But North Korea has an embargo on the purchase of luxury or highly expensive goods. This is why many of their aircraft are old and outdated. Still, Kim Jong-un has been known to break this rule sometimes, as seen in the purchase of a luxury car and yacht. But let's not jump ahead of ourselves. We'll get to that soon. Personally, I just think he's still working on getting over his fear of flights and air travel in general. He seems to be taking baby steps though, like this solo ski lift ride at North Korea's Masakyong ski resort, traveling by sea. It is very unlikely that Kim Jong-un has ever made any international travel by sea, but he has been spotted on boats and submarines accompanied by the Navy while making short supervisory visits. In 2013, while he was visiting a fishing station run by the Army, pictures showed a mysterious white yacht in the background. This sparked rumors about who the owner of the yacht, speculated to have cost about $7 million, could be. But who are we kidding? No one but the Supreme Leader can dare to have such pricey possessions without facing any sanctions. No pictures are showing him or any member of his family using the yacht, but perhaps they have decided to keep this secret. Speaking of secrets, it's hard to imagine the rigid leader drunk on an exclusive island, but that did indeed happen. Taking trips to secret islands. Kim Jong-un was a student at the International School of Bern when he fell in love with basketball and developed feelings for a specific player, a man with whom he would later form an unlikely international friendship, Dennis Rodman. He and Rodman have formed an unlikely bromance, with Rodman having visited Kim Jong-un on several different occasions, the first of which was in 2013. On his first trip to Pyongyang, Rodman was treated to all of the best things in life, and a party of booze, babes, food, cheese, and so much of everything that Rodman might not have left Pyongyang had he not had other things to do with his life. Fortunately, Rodman remembered from one of their drunken misadventures that they had visited one of Kim's private islands. Few people are allowed on the island, and Rodman described their week-long stay as heaven on earth, complete with a never-ending bar serving as much alcohol as you can drink, vomit, and drink again. The entire island was created for Kim's entertainment, and it was no joke to see jet skis, women from all over the world, and all of the booze that came from everywhere on Earth. As Rodman said, "This was unlike anything I had ever seen in my life. It was like paradise." So how did they get to that secret island, you may ask? According to Rodman, they took a boat that resembled a cross between a ferry and a Disneyland. According to his rough estimates, the ship was nearly 200 feet long and filled with almost everything he could think of, as well as some things he'd never seen before. And while the former NBA star couldn't go into too much detail about their exploits, I suspect an NDA was in play, what Rodman witnessed could be the stuff of legends. He also stated that while they had partied like it was 1999, they did not return from Kim's super-secret party island via his party boat, but they did take his yacht from Representative Yachts from Princess International. And based on some of the images we've seen, it's a 95-foot, 29-meter yacht worth around $7 million, complete with all the amenities that a VIP like Kim would expect. So there's a crazy party boat the size of a football field and a $7 million yacht that can take them everywhere they want. Damn, is there anything this guy doesn't have? For such a poor country, this guy is leading a life that would even make the Queen blush. Traveling like the rest of us. So what has become clear to everyone watching this video is that Kim Jong-un doesn't live and travel like the rest of us, and even when he does, he's always doing it big. However, there is one mode of transportation that everyone uses, and that is by car. However, in typical Kim Jong-un fashion, he's out here stunting everyone like there's no tomorrow. If the supreme leader doesn't even leave his excreta in the countries he travels to, yes, he travels with a private restroom because it is believed that his body waste could be used to get information about his health. Then it is understandable that he will not use any rented vehicles, no matter who they belong to. When Kim goes around on international trips, he has driven around in his exceptionally luxurious personal limousine, which is a Mercedes-Benz Maybach S6000. The armored car is worth an estimated $1.6 million and is most likely the most luxurious car in all of North Korea. Reports say that the vehicle has a customized inbuilt restroom that leader Kim can use while in transit. This is aside from a private mobile toilet attached to a car which travels with him at all times. He also has a personal security detail of about 12 men who always run alongside it to run interference, constantly monitor his surroundings, and replace tracking drones. One picture that garnered internet fame was when a black Mercedes was used to transport the North Korean leader across the border for an inter-Korean summit. His dozen bodyguards clad in suits could be seen running with the car on both sides and behind as well. Kim has also been spotted riding on regular buses in North Korea, in the company of his wife and other regular citizens. One peculiar thing about Kim is his love for Western vehicles. Not only does he have the Maybach S6000, but he also owns a Mercedes-AMG G63, which is said to be worth over $150,000, and a 1970 Lincoln limousine that was owned by his father and is worth about $30,000. He also has a Lexus LX 570, which is worth over $80,000, and a Rolls-Royce Phantom, which is worth more than $500,000. These are perhaps the only luxury vehicles in the whole of North Korea. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe. Click the video cards on your screen to keep you watching more videos like this.